Hello everyone, in this video we are just going to interface RGB LED module with the Raspberry Pi Pico W development board. So this is a very short video where we are just going to learn how to interface an RGB LED module with Raspberry Pi Pico. Following that, we will be building some applications like RGB color generator, RGB dimmer, etc. in following lecture videos. Now we are just going to interface the basic RGB LED module with Raspberry Pi Pico W. Let's discuss about the schematic diagram that we're going to build for interfacing the RGB LED module with Raspberry Pi Pico W. So on the screen you can see the Raspberry Pi Pico development board, and here on the right bottom corner you can see the RGB LED module. So usually the RGB LED is a combined form of LED which will be containing three individual LEDs. One is red, green and blue. So all these three LEDs clubbed together to form a single light emitting diode is called a RGB LED. And you can get this particular LED individually as a component, and also you can get it as a module. So both of a component and a module will be having four terminals commonly. One is the ground terminal, which will be connecting it to ground of Raspberry Pi Pico, which is nothing but the cathode of all these three LEDs. So all the three LEDs will be having a common cathode, which will be ground of the module or the individual RGB LED component, and we will be connecting that to the ground of Raspberry Pi Pico. And blue terminal will be the anode of blue LED. I am just going to connect it to GP18 of Raspberry Pi Pico. Green terminal will be the anode of green LED. I am just going to connect it to GP17 of Raspberry Pi Pico, and the red terminal will be the anode of red LED. I am just going to connect it to GP16 of Raspberry Pi Pico. That's all. So that's all about the schematic that I'm going to build in the breadboard for visualizing the output in the hardware. That is the interface of this particular RGB LED module to Raspberry Pi Pico output in my breadboard. So let's develop the Python scripts in Tony IDE for visualizing the output in the hardware. Now that we just discussed about the schematic diagram that we are going to build in breadboard for interfacing the RGB LED module with Raspberry Pi Pico W, I'm just going to open the Tony IDE for writing down the relevant program for interfacing the RGB LED module with Raspberry Pi Pico. So here I am just going to create a new project by clicking on this particular icon or Ctrl N in my keyboard, and new file has been created. I'm just going to save this file, save respective location where I want the file to be saved as RGB interface, and it will be saved in the .py format. And here you can see the basic program that we wrote in the video of interfacing LED with Raspberry Pi Pico W. So in this particular script, we have just configured the onboard LED of Raspberry Pi Pico here as output, and we have turned on the LED, waited for 0.5 seconds, turned off the LED, and we have waited for 0.5 seconds. We are just going to do the same thing right over here, except that we are just going to blink all the three red, green, blue LEDs of RGB LED module. So as per the schematic diagram that we discussed, we are just going to connect the red LED to GP16, green LED to GP17, and blue LED to GP18. So this is the schematic that we have built in the breadboard. Now we are just going to configure all these three pins 16, 17, 18 of Raspberry Pi Pico as output pin. So here instead of LED I am just going to write 16, and instead of LED right over here I am just going to give it as red. I am just copying this, pasting it right over here. Here I am naming this variable as green for GP17, And again I'm just creating another variable called blue, and this time I'm just going to give the number here as 18 since the blue LED panel is connected to GP18 of Raspberry Pi Pico. So instead of this LED dot value 1, I'm just going to make the red LED 1 and rest 2 LEDs, that is green and blue, 0. Similarly, after 0.5 seconds, I'm just going to turn on the green LED and I'm going to turn off red and blue. And after this cycle, I'm just going to turn on the blue LED and I'm going to turn off red and green. Again the cycle continues. So in the first cycle, red LED will be turned on for 0.5 seconds, and in the next cycle after 0.5 seconds, green LED will be turned on, and after 0.5 seconds, the blue LED will be turned on, turning off the red and green LED for 0.5 seconds. After this particular final cycle, all these will be started from the beginning, since all these lines are written inside the infinite loop or while of true loop of the Python. So I'm just going to save this, and you can see I have already connected my Raspberry Pi Pico to my development board. Now I'm just going to run this program by clicking on this particular icon or F5 in my keyboard. You can see this is the output that I got in the hardware, that is all the 3 LEDs red, green and blue is toggling at a rate of 0.5 seconds each. Red for 0.5 seconds, green for 0.5 seconds, blue for 0.5 seconds, and it goes on. So we successfully interfaced the RGB LED module to our Raspberry Pi Pico development board in this particular video. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.